Coming up on today's video, crucial injury updates from all 20 Premier League teams, everything you need to know about the mystery chip, what to do with Brian and Burmo, and much more. Welcome to FPL Mate, my name is Dan. We have got so much to cover ahead of the Gameweek 16 deadline, so let's get on with it. Let's start off, as always, with the team news from all 20 Premier League teams. And guys, if you do appreciate this content, make sure you are dropping a like. Massively helps out the channel. And do subscribe if you're new around here. We're going to start off with Arsenal and Gabriel. Pretty positive. He has trained. He actually could be available. I've seen a lot of the Arsenal journalists actually fairly confident on Gabriel starting this game week. So I don't think he is a player to sell. He is a player to keep for this game week. Even if he is out for this week, he should at least be back for next week. So very, very close to a return for Gabriel, and it could well happen against Everton at home, where we've got a really good chance of a clean sheet. Don't worry, we will be covering clean sheet odds in this video as well. Calafiori did not train, however. He's not going to be ready for this game week, and Zinchenko, White and Tomiyasu remain out. Everyone else seems to be available for Arsenal. As for Everton, Keane is available following injury, although I don't think he will start ahead of the likes of Jared Branthwaite and James Tarkowski. Broja, Chamiti, Coleman and O'Brien and Patterson, they're close, but I'm not sure if they're going to be quite ready for this game. And Ghana and Irogbunam are still out for Game Week 16. For Liverpool, Alisson is back. He played in the midweek Champions League game, so we are expecting Alisson to be back between the sticks for Game Week 16 in this fixture against Fulham. Chiesa and Jota are available and could make the squad. Interestingly, Chiesa is maybe expected to be back for the League Cup game in the midweek, which could mean that Salah gets that really important rest during the League Cup. We know Liverpool do like to rotate during that cup competition in particular. Bradley, Konate, Simikas and McAllister, who is suspended, these players are all unavailable for the Fulham game, however. As for Fulham, Nelson has been ruled out for 10 weeks. Anderson and Reed are also both out for now, and Bassi and Carey are suspended. So a real question mark around captaincy for this week. You're probably considering Palmer and Salah, but with Salah, we know now that there's no Anderson, there's no Bassi. These are the two main centre-backs for Fulham. Now, Diop is available as well, but outside of that, Fulham are going to be a little bit light in the centre-back position, which could mean that Liverpool can capitalise on that and score some goals against the Fulham team, who, in fairness, are a pretty strong defence. For Newcastle, Wilson has picked up another hamstring injury. He's going to be out until February, which is good for Isak at least. We know Isak is going to be good for minutes now for the next couple of months, which is nice. Pope and Willock are doubtful ahead of Game Week 16, but these are not serious injuries, so they could be back for this week. If not, maybe after that, maybe Game Week 17. Botman has been given a deadline of late December or very early January for his return to the Newcastle starting lineup. And as for Leicester, few problems here. And Ndidi will be out for a couple of weeks with a hamstring injury. Winks is also doubtful. He's not even fully trained this week. And Samare is suspended for this game week as well, which means Leicester's three main centre midfield players are unavailable for this Newcastle clash. So get your Newcastle players ready to go, guys. This could be a really interesting result for the Geordie boys. As for Wolves, Sarabia and Jose Sarr are unavailable due to injury. Sarabia is usually the penalty taker for Wolves, which means Cunha is probably nailed on for the penalties for this game week. João Gomez is suspended following yellow card accumulation, and Lamina, he has been stripped of his captaincy following what went down at the end of Game Week 15. His starting place could also be in danger as a result of this. So a little bit of turmoil in the Wolves camp at the moment, with results really not going their way. As for Ipswich, Johnson and Phillips are available, but they are not at 100%. And there are apparently one or two illnesses in the camp. We see a lot of that this time of year. We get to the winter months in England, and a few colds, a few flus do go round. I mean, I've been suffering with the same thing, so you can imagine that is impacting Premier League players as well. Hurst, Ogbene and Tuanzebe remain unavailable for Ipswich. Let's move on. So in this Midlands derby, Nuno refused to give specific injury news, but we know there is no big issues, at least, that we don't already know about. Danilo and Sagare are those long-term absentees, and Alex Moreno cannot face his parent club, Aston Villa. He's on loan from Villa to Forest, so will be a different left-back this week for Forest. As for Aston Villa, Watkins picked up a minor injury during the midweek Champions League game, and he's going to have a late assessment. He hasn't been able to train so far, but things can change as we move closer to the game. He is a severe doubt though. Bailey and Ramsey are out, and Onana returned to the squad for the Champions League game this week, and he is going to be available for Villa. Really interesting press conference from Hertzler this week, as he basically gave percentages of players starting, like how likely it is. Veltman has a 50% chance to play, Hinchelwood 40%, and then the slightly more unlikely players, Kadioglu's got about a 20% chance of playing, and Milner just 10%. March is also pushing to be an option, but that probably suggests he's not quite ready to play yet. As for Crystal Palace, Wharton and Chadi Riyad are not quite ready to start in Game Week 16, but they'll be back very soon. Franca is still unavailable as he continues his rehab, and Ward is doubtful after some issues with his calf muscle. For Man City, some more bad news. Akanji and Ake are going to be unavailable. They need some time to recover. Stones is also out, and we know Rico Lewis is suspended, which doesn't leave too many defenders available for Man City at the moment, so they could actually end up playing with wingers as fullbacks. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Nunez could play as wingback. Pep Guardiola has admitted he has some problems to solve ahead of the Manchester derby. However, Foden and Kovacic are available again. They were in the Champions League squad in the midweek, so that is going to be a boost in the attacking areas for Man City. As for Manchester United, Luke Shaw is still unavailable due to his injury setbacks. Evans and Lindelof, however, have trained this week. For Chelsea, Mudryk is apparently still ill and is doubtful ahead of this game week. Fofana and James will be out for a little while longer, and Neto is suspended following yellow card accumulation. 5 yellow cards equals 1 game suspension for the Chelsea man. As for Brentford, Janel should be available following a minor injury he sustained last game week. Jensen and Nunez are still out, and De Silva, Henry and Hickey remain long-term absentees. For Southampton, Bednarek, McCarthy and Onuachu are back and available. Ramsdale is almost ready, but Game Week 16 is going to be a little bit too soon. Bazunu, Larios, Stewart and Stevens, who is suspended, are unavailable for this fixture against Spurs. As for Spurs, lots of issues here, unfortunately, Spurs fans. Romero and Van de Ven are out. We will find out the extent of their injuries next week. Postecoglou's basically said, because the injuries are so fresh, they still need assessment before we can give them proper deadlines for when they are likely to be back. So for now, they are just unavailable, and we don't know how quickly they are going to be back. Bad news, sell these players for FPL. Vicario, Davies, Richarlison, Odegaard, and Bentancur, who is suspended. These are all unavailable for Game Week 16, and Basuma will also miss Game Week 16 through suspension. And the Monday night fixture, Bournemouth, Araujo, Scott, Senesi, and Sinisterra, and Tavernier are all out for this game week. Adams is available following a rest last week. He is being eased back into the squad following long-term issues that he has had in the past. As for West Ham, unfortunately, Antonio last week did suffer a leg fracture in a car accident. He's going to be out for a long term. He's apparently quite fortunate to even be alive following that car accident. So we're really wishing the best of recoveries for Antonio. Really rough one, that one. But anyway, there are apparently some other unspecified issues in the West Ham squad, and Emerson is going to be suspended for Game Week 16 here as well. So let's move on to the other topics. We've got plenty of to talk about still for this game week and plenty of questions to answer. So I thought we'd look at the win percentages for each of the fixtures this game week to see who is likely to win, lose and draw. And guys, you can also play along with the sleeper prize league that I am running this season. Win big prizes including football shirts, games consoles, all that kind of stuff in our monthly prizes and our yearly prize giveaways. It's never too late to join in, get started and start competing for these prizes. So get stuck in using the link in the description. But we can use this information to make predictions on the win, lose and draws. Super easy to do on the app. So we can see straight away Arsenal, Liverpool, Newcastle and Chelsea are basically like they have such good odds to win. It would be foolish to bet against any of these sides. But outside of that, I wonder if we could see a couple of draws. I'm going to put Spurs down to win this game week as well. I think that's likely to happen. But, you know, I think Nottingham Forest versus Aston Villa in particular, that looks like the tightest game. They've been given a 29% chance of a draw there, which is quite interesting. I'm going to go for Brighton to beat Palace, Man City versus Manchester United. I don't know, both teams seem to be in a bit of turmoil at the moment, but I'm going to back the home side. And then that just leaves Wolves versus Ipswich. I think that's possibly going to be a draw. And then Bournemouth versus West Ham. What should I predict for that one? Let's go for Bournemouth. Okay, I'm happy with that. But if you think that you can do a better job of predicting any of these results, then download the app, guys. Get started, get your predictions in, and start competing for prizes. It's really, really easy to do. And yeah, you can just use the link in the description or the QR code on screen right now as well, guys. But anyway, after that, let's move on to some other stuff, such as the clean sheet odds for this game week, where we see Arsenal, Newcastle, and Liverpool with the best chances for a clean sheet according to the bookies. Source, as always, Rob T FPL on Twitter. So yeah, if you're looking for defenders for game week 16, this is probably where you want to go. The one doubt around Newcastle is the availability of Pope. If he's unavailable, we could see that clean sheet percentage drop a little bit, but I'd still be reasonably confident on these guys. Chelsea and Brighton also have respectable clean sheet odds here, with Bournemouth, City and Wolves some other players that could see some results and maybe getting some clean sheet points, which are pretty difficult to come by. But there are some teams that are predicted to concede quite a lot of goals. Brentford, Leicester and Fulham. We can understand why these teams are likely to lose their clean sheets against some tough oppositions. Everton, Southampton and Manchester United are in for a rough ride for defence as well. So try and bench these defenders if you do have them. In terms of those goal scorer odds, we're always going to see Haaland at the top of this list, but it's quite interesting to see Palmer and Isak really close in behind. 0.83 projected goals for Haaland in game week 16, with Palmer on 0.77. That's really interesting for captaincy. And Isak at 0.75 as well. So he could be the best non-premium player to go for this week. Salah is down at 0.68 projected goals this week as well, which suggests that Palmer is more likely to get a result here against Brentford than Salah against Fulham. There are some other players here. Jackson, Evanilson, Son and Solanke look pretty good for attacking returns here. And we do see players like Cunha, Cliver and Gordon a little bit further down the list, but still with solid chance of getting attacking returns, of getting goals in game week 16. I've updated my fixture congestion table this game week, guys. This is not a fixture difficulty rating tool, but rather to see which teams have a lot of games to play and which teams are at most danger of rotation. So you can pause the video, take a screenshot, whatever you need to do to consume this big table, because obviously we can't go through all of it. But what we do see is that even though we all talk about December, Christmas, fixture, congestion, loads of fixtures around Christmas, of course that is true for the Premier League, but when we get outside of that, towards January, you can see that for a lot of teams, the congestion just keeps going, particularly for Arsenal, Aston Villa, Liverpool, Man City, Manchester United and Spurs, who will all have to play FA Cup, Champions League, Europa League, all at the same time. And they could even have EFL Cup semi-finals as well during that period. So there's a lot of teams with still a lot of fixtures to play. One small note, in game week 19, Arsenal versus Brentford, or Brentford versus Arsenal, is slightly later than the rest of the fixtures. They play on Wednesday for game week 19. So they actually do have a little break between game week 18 and 19, where no other teams really do. So yeah, just a little note there. The fixture congestion is not getting any better anytime soon. Although between game week 19 and 20, maybe it is a little bit kinder. But it is the calm before yet another fixture congestion storm and potentially some rotation for those less nailed on players. So play at your own risk with those rotation risk players. Go for those nailed FPL assets. They're still going to continue to be useful for the long term. I wanted to try and make a little guide this game week on where to sell Mbeumo and Bruno. I know a lot of people are holding on to these players, but also see these players as cash cows. If they want to make other upgrades in their team, then maybe selling an Mbeumo or a Bruno could be a way to upgrade other areas of your team. So hopefully this makes sense. Basically, the way I've set it out is that you have a look on the left-hand side. Who do you have? Do you have an Mbeumo and a Bruno? If you're thinking about selling them, do it as part of a double transfer, not just on their own, as part of a double transfer, and then look down the list on the left-hand side. which of these other players do you have? Do you have some of these other guys? If so, it might be worth making that double transfer involving Mbeumo or Bruno and that second player in your squad. And depending on who it is, some of these players, you should probably do it for free. Some others, it might even be worth doing it for a hit. So once you've identified the 2 players that you're selling, we can move on over to the right side and have a look at some players to buy. Of course, if you haven't got Salah, Palmer and Saka, these players are worth getting in for a hit, but there are plenty of other options for you to get in as well. Enzo and Gordon look like pretty good choices in midfield. Iwobi, Ahmad and Bowen, less so, but they're still okay. Isak is definitely worth bringing in this week, and I wouldn't take a hit for a defender, but Alexander-Arnold, Timber and Van Dijk would be my favourite defensive upgrades to make using that Mbeumo and Bruno money that you just maybe downgraded one of them to upgrade a defender. So plenty of options for your cash cow Mbeumos and Brunos that you can use to really improve your team. Hopefully this graphic makes sense and you can identify what double transfer moves you might consider making ahead of Game Week 16. Now, I wanted to try and do a quick and easy and simplified, I guess, explanation of the mystery chip, which has been revealed this week as the assistant manager chip. However, it has to be said, there is no such thing as a simple explanation because this chip is incredibly complicated, and this explanation doesn't even cover everything. It covers all of the key points, but there is so much going on here. There really is. So please bear with me. So this is the assistant manager chip and how it works. What you do is you pick a manager for your FPL team from the 20 Premier League team managers. Picking a manager costs between 0.5 million and 1.5 million for your budget, so you have to have money in your bank in order to activate this chip. Picking a manager takes up one of your 3 slots from that team, so if you already have triple Arsenal in your team, you cannot pick Arteta as your manager because your 3 Arsenal slots are already occupied by players, so you can't pick a manager there. You can use this chip from any time after Game Week 24. Once played, the chip cannot be cancelled, so once it's up, it's up. The chip lasts for 3 consecutive game weeks, so it's active for the game week you activate it and the 2 game weeks after that as well. Once you've activated it, no other chips can be used during this period. You have to wait 3 game weeks before using another chip. You can transfer your manager during this time, but that will cost you free transfers and hits. So, for example, if you start off with, I don't know, Arne Slot, but you want to transfer to Pep Guardiola, you can do that, but it will cost you one of your free transfers / a hit if you don't have any free transfers. So yeah, we've not even started on the scoring system, and there is already a lot going on here. As for the scoring, managers will earn 6 points per win that their team gets, 3 points per draw, and 0 points per loss. Managers will also earn 1 point for each goal their team scores during this 3 game week period, 2 points for each clean sheet during that 3 game week period, and it gets even more complicated because if your manager plays against a team ranked 5 places or more above them in the league table during the week in which the chip was first activated, they will earn an additional 10 points if they beat that team that is ranked 5 places above them, so 16 points total, or 5 additional points if they draw, taking the total there to 8. So it is really complicated, guys. It really is. And finally, any double game week fixtures, that they are all scored as well, as long as they are within the 3 game week activation period. So, you know, if you use the chip in game week 24, and then there's a double game week in 25, you'll get the 1 fixture in 24, the 2 fixtures in 25, and the fixture in 26 as well. 3 game weeks. It doesn't matter how many fixtures are within those 3 game weeks. So it's probably a good idea to use this chip during a double game week later on in the season. In terms of strategy for this chip, this is a whole other issue, and it is going to get really, really complicated when we talk about strategy behind this chip. But for now, I think the basics of when you're probably likely to use this chip is on probably a cheap manager who is slightly lower down the table, who is in good form, but plays teams who are above them in the table, but teams that they can beat, despite them being above them in the table. But also, you know, we want to go for cheap managers. So players mid-table, lower down the table teams, they're going to be around 0.5 to 1 million. So they're probably the managers you want to go for. And doing so gives you the opportunity to get like the mega hauls, because even though like you can use an Arna slot to beat Southampton and get 6 points for that. But if you take, I don't know, an Everton player or an Everton manager, Sean Dyche, and you manage to get a draw with even like a team like Brighton, who are significantly higher than them in the table, you get 8 points for that. So it's more important to get draws as a low down the table manager than it is to get wins from a high up the table manager. So there's going to be strategy in play there. So yeah, mid-table teams, mid to low table teams, I guess, who have a double game week during a 3-game week period, but also fixtures you feel they can win or at least draw in ahead of them and they're in good form. Man, it's going to get complicated, but we will cover that later on in the season. Just wanted to give you a quick overview now. I'd be keen to hear your thoughts on the mystery chip, but I think we'll talk about it loads in tomorrow's deadline stream. We're going to go early on tomorrow's deadline stream to make sure we can have a big conversation about this, because there's so much going on, man. There really is. I don't know. I'll give my opinions properly tomorrow. I made a wildcard draft for you guys. If you are on a wildcard or you just want to see what your team could potentially look like in an ideal world, this team costs 102 million, but I think it's pretty good. So we've got triple Liverpool in here with Alisson, Trent and Salah. We've got Kirkes and Gabriel as the other defenders here, with Munoz on the bench, who rotates really well with Kirkes, but also provides that Gabriel cover that you might need. The fifth defender is the nice cheap Johnson, because if you have Trent and Gabriel, I don't think you really need 3 playing defenders after that. You could just rotate Kirkes and Munoz, play Trent and Gabriel every week. Also, don't think you need a backup goalkeeper if you have Alisson, so we've gone super cheap with Virginia. And then in midfield, we've got Palmer, Salah, as we mentioned, Saka, a nice cheap Enzo Fernandez, and Iwobi, who is going to rotate with Enzo. They rotate really nicely. As for the forwards, Isak, Evanilson and João Pedro would be the way to go. Isak and João Pedro definitely. The third slot, I've gone for Evanilson due to budget restrictions, but if you do have a little bit more money in the bank, you could go for a Cunha here potentially, or, you know, whoever else you like the look of right now. Maybe Jackson, if you can find a way to him. Lots of options, guys. So that would be my favourite kind of wildcard team for Game Week 16, using a budget of 102 million. Tinker at your own leisure. And finally, let's look at the top predicted points for this game week. And we do see Palmer is number 1 against Brentford. 8.1 predicted points for him. Really nice, with a really nice fixture. Salah is down at 7.8, but we do need to take into consideration those defensive injuries that Fulham have right now. Haaland is also predicted 7.8 points at home against Manchester United. Isak against Leicester, 7.2, and Saka below him against Everton, 7.1. So these are the big 5 players really for this game week who are predicted to score the highest amount of points. I would hope that you guys have at least 3 or 4 of these guys if you're looking for a big score in Game Week 16. As for captaincy, for me, it is simply between Palmer and Salah. Not sure I would go anywhere else, but if you forced me, I'd maybe go for Isak. So there we go. I think we covered everything we needed to ahead of the Game Week 16 deadline. But if there's any other questions you have, let me know in the comments section. We will be back for a deadline stream tomorrow, where I'm sure we'll cover loads of other stuff as well, 2 hours before deadline. So make sure you do join me on that one. Make sure your notifications are on. But I pretty much need to stop talking now because my nose is stuffy, my voice sounds terrible, and my throat is going to explode. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure you do drop a like, subscribe if you're new around here, and check out another video if you'd like to. Loads of content on Game Week 16 this week, and I will see you tomorrow for the deadline stream. See you later, mates. Bye-bye.